Okay, so let's dive right in. Think about it. Where do you go when reality feels like, well, just too much?
Hmm.
Maybe it's that movie you watch over and over, or a book that just pulls you in completely.
Or even just, losing yourself in a daydream.
Exactly. We all seek that escape sometimes, don't we? But how deep does that craving really run, and what does it actually do for us?
It's a really universal impulse, this need for refuge, for another world.
Yeah.
And it forces us to confront a pretty fundamental question, I think. What is the true place, the real power of fiction and imagination in our lives?
Mm-hmm. Especially when the world we're actually living in feels frustrating or difficult, maybe even overwhelming.
Right.
And we're exploring that very question today through a really fascinating story. It's about a woman during the Great Depression.
A tough time.
Oh, yeah. Her only comfort is the cinema.
Yeah.
And then something completely impossible happens. The line between her life and the movie screen just blurs in a way you wouldn't believe.
So this is the story of Cecilia. Her life in the grim 1930s is just defined by hardship.
Like what?
Well, a difficult marriage, a real dead-end job. Her reality is just bleak.
Okay.
Her absolute refuge, the local movie theater. She finds solace there, almost like a kind of life, by immersing herself completely in those fictional worlds.
Especially the romantic ones, right?
Exactly, those romantic melodramas.
And this is where the story takes this just incredible turn and a truly extraordinary moment. A character from the film she's
The
watching.
leading man.
Yeah, the romantic lead, Tom Baxter. He literally steps off the screen and into her life.
Wow.
I mean, it's the ultimate fantasy come true, isn't it? Suddenly offering her the tenderness, the adventure.
Everything her real life so desperately lacks.
Totally.
And the ideas we looked at really highlight the stark contrast,
Yeah.
between these two worlds she's in.
Oh, so?
On one hand, you have the harsh reality. It's driven by abuse, by self-interest, people using each other, instruments, really.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have the fictional world of the movie. It's warm. It presents this idealized romantic love, inner beauty, perhaps simpler, maybe even lacking the depth of reality.
But comforting.
Definitely comforting.
Yeah.
And Cecilia identifies so profoundly with that screen world. She almost lives in it more than her own life.
But you can imagine this kind of impossible situation gets complicated fast.
Right, because Tom's disappearance throws the fictional world of the movie into total chaos. The plot just stops.
And the other characters are just stuck.
Stuck, confused. And then the real world actor who plays Tom, Gil Shepard, he shows up. He's trying to figure out why his character just walked out of the film.
Oh, wow. So suddenly Cecilia is caught between this perfect, simple character from the movie and the imperfect, real flesh and blood man who plays him.
It's a huge dilemma. And the story culminates in Cecilia making this devastating choice.
What happens?
After being abandoned, ultimately, by the movie character, she goes back. She returns to the cinema.
Back to the escape.
Yes. And the film itself suggests something pretty profound, maybe even controversial, that in realities as harsh as hers, realities that might feel, irredeemably frustrating, this return to escapism, to fiction, it can actually be a reasonable path, a way to find comfort, to reconcile with life, even after such a huge blow.
That's a powerful idea and kind of surprising, honestly. It makes you wonder about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Is fiction just a pointless way to avoid reality? Or, as one perspective suggests, could it be a valuable refuge, maybe even like a laboratory for understanding life?
It's interesting because this isn't just limited to books or movies, right? Our own daydreams, our expectations, even our dreams at night.
Yeah.
They all function like these sort of personal fictions that shape how we see and interact with the actual world.
And looking at this more broadly, we see other viewpoints out there, right? Different takes on this.
Absolutely. Think about characters like Don Quixote or Madame Bovary.
Okay. Classic examples.
Right. They tried to live by the rules of fiction, to impose those fantasy narratives onto reality. And their stories tragically show that this usually leads to destruction or even death. When those illusions inevitably clash with the real world, you can't sustain it.
Then there are those views that see mass-produced fiction movies, TV, as something, much more negative.
Yeah, ideas linked to thinkers like Bourdieu or Sartori, perhaps, or even that concept in the Magics.
How so?
They basically argue that this kind of entertainment is a form of, let's call it, hypnotic escapism.
hypnotic.
Yeah, it passively absorbs people. It stops critical thought and action. It essentially makes them complacent, like battery is just content within a comfortable false world.
Keeping people docile.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
But what stands out here is how the film's message really seems to counter some of these views.
Okay.
Unlike those who insist that returning to reality, no matter how painful it is always necessary. This film entertains the idea that if the social world is genuinely, irredeemably frustrating, then perhaps finding refuge in escapism isn't weakness. Maybe it's a form of wisdom or even survival. It's framed almost like a leap of faith.
Yeah.
You can't be certain if a better reality is truly possible, or if frustration is just inherent to being alive.
So, like you said, there's no single simple answer here. It's not about fiction being all good or all bad.
Not at all. Maybe the real insight lies in navigating that tricky balance, looking at each situation, each story, case by case.
Instead of getting stuck in those extremes, like fiction is bad, reality is good, or vice versa.
Exactly. It brings us right back to that core tension. The imagination as both this vital refuge and potential trap.
That pull of idealized perfect worlds versus the challenge, the often messy work of building meaning and connection in the imperfect reality we actually live in.
It's constant negotiation.
So, reflecting on all this, think about your own life. What stories, movies, or maybe dreams do you turn to for comfort or for escape? Where do you see that balance playing out between stepping into imagination and, fully engaging with the sometimes difficult world around you? What does that balance look like for you right now?